If you are wondering whether or not fasting is beneficial to your health, you clicked on the right video. Hi, I'm Dr. Cori Stern, and welcome to my channel, Take Control of Your Health. If you have not yet had a chance to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button now, as that is my reward for doing these videos for you. Don't forget to hit the like button if the information helps you, so more people can find it. And last and most importantly, please share this with anyone you think would benefit from the information. So today I'm excited to have a guest who I've been following for a while. This is Dr. Don Clum, and he has generously agreed to share his wealth of knowledge and information on fasting to let us know whether or not it's actually good for us, and if so, how to go about it. So Dr. Don is a chiropractor and nutritionist, just like me, and I am very happy to have the opportunity to have him share his wealth of knowledge today. So Dr. Don, just give us a little information, a little background about yourself. How did you get into this area?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Cori. Great to be here. I appreciate that. All right. How did I get back into it? I didn't start off trying to be the fasting guy, right? That was not a career choice. That wasn't a path that was laid out in front of me. I kind of found myself backing my way into it. Years ago, I lived in Costa Rica with my family for 8 years. And during that time, I developed some lesions that I then went to have checked, only to find out they verbally diagnosed me with skin cancer. At that point, you get a biopsy, you go down that road. I didn't do that. I wasn't going the medical route. But what I did do is I took it as a big wake-up call, living in paradise, young, and thinking I'm, made of rubber, invincible. I had this diagnosis, so I started looking for things, tightening up my ship, doing the things I know, doubling down on the basics, and eventually led me into fasting one way or the other. And once that happened, I figured out a way to use that in my lifestyle. And long story short, the lesions grew kind of ugly and fell off, essentially.
Wow.
One on my neck, one on my back, 2 separate times, and over the course of 5 years, and I haven't had anything since. So that's what
Amazing.
Undeniable capture of my attention when it came to fasting, because I wasn't doing anything medical. I grew up in a chiropractic family, natural, and so I had a lot of strong opinions, and luckily it worked out for me. So that got me into it. And then we went from Costa Rica to Spain for a couple of years, practiced there. And then when we came back to the States, my kids were around 9 and I think they were 10 and 8, and I had a little one. And we got back to the States after 10 years. And when I saw the condition of the health in the schools, the teachers, the parents, and the allergy stations and the medication, I was blown away. I hadn't seen that before. My kids' first time in the States, they were confused by it. So when we opened our practice, we had an integrative wellness center, and then we had a medical and natural wellness center for opioid reduction and things like that. And so I got to get back in. I couldn't just do chiropractic, and I couldn't do the traditional nutrition. I had to figure out how to keep my family off that road, first of all, and then expand it out to my community. So that got me back into that, got me back to my roots with the chiropractic, with the nutrition degree. And then eventually a friend of mine started a population health company, and he came in and he saw what we were doing in the office. He said, "Can we do this on a population?" I said, "I don't know." We thought we'd try. That got us to Washington, and where we got to do studies with thousands of people and testing all different kinds of methodology. And that's where a lot of the data and the fine tuning came from. And now, consequently, I'm the fasting guy.
That's quite an inspirational story. I didn't know that. Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, so based on the fact that you seem to have healed these malignant lesions using fasting, at least in part, I'm going to guess that your position on fasting is that it's good for you. So let's talk about that and talk about why fasting is good for you, and then how to do it.
Sure. Yeah, well, I have learned over the years, when I was working in the population health world, one of our clients was a large medical system with 120,000 employees, from the surgeons to the drivers to everyone in between. And to present my alternative plans, because I'm not a conventional guy, especially the diabetes prevention program, I had to present to a whole medical board, PhDs. They were scrutinizing everything, and that made me dive into the research. And when I did, it led me into the physiology of how the cells work and communicate. And that's what created the hormonal model that I work from. Because I was about, they didn't know me. I had to be ready. And I spent probably a good part of a year just studying this stuff. And it all leads back to the function of the cell. Okay. So is it healthy? I don't not only think it is healthy, I think it is expected in our genome. I think our body over time and generations and our evolution has had fasting on and off all constantly. It never was without it. And now here we are, we have those mechanisms in us to get ready to fast, get through a fast, and then grow after the fast. But what we do is we only prepare to fast metabolically in our body, in the physiology, but we never actually do the fast. And it's the holding in that preparation state, if you will, that breaks down the system, because it's like anxious and ready, and we leave it there. We never access it. And that just is a big strain on the body. When you look at it that way, body fat, liver organ fat, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, they all now can be seen as a very normal and natural process, because they're all part of the preparation time. Like, for example, birds do it before they migrate. Bears will do that before they hibernate. Fish will do it before they go dormant for the cold season, right? We do it evolutionarily to get through a hard winter. So we would bulk up on fruit when they're ripe towards the end of the summer. That would cause liver fat. That would cause some organ fat. It would cause insulin resistance, and it would pack it in our abdomen, in our belly. And then when we got to the time where we had to work a lot harder or didn't have as much food in the winter, that fat, all of that was built up can come out, and we spend it, and that gets us through. So that mechanism that saved us now is practically killing us, because we get it ready to do something, but we just don't take the action.
That's really fascinating. It makes so much sense. I've always understood the concept of the fact that we're overeating, that we have food in abundance, and we just keep eating and eating and eating and eat too much. So I recognize that, and I know that we are, biologically designed to eat less and to have periods of not eating. But I never made that connection that you just explained about. It makes so much sense that we would be building up our fat stores to be able to use for when we weren't not going to have food available. So
Sure, not just
okay.
any fat cells, it's that visceral fat and organ fat. Now fatty liver is considered a disease, but that fat is different than what I have on my love handles. That fat, I think of it this way: if the blood sugar in our blood is going around right now, think of that as cash on hand, right? You're going out to a downtown market and you got your cash on hand, right? Inside of our muscle and liver, we have pockets that hold cash. So they're like wallets, and that's what holds glycogen. So we got the cash on hand, we have our quick access wallet, and then we have body fat. Body fat is like having your money in a savings account. You're out shopping, you can use it, but you got to get it to your checking, then use it on your card. There's a few more steps, not as easy as cash on hand. When we build up that visceral fat, that liver in particular, organ fat, that's like having $100 bills. Okay, $100 bills, still cash, still got good value, but if you're at a market, you can't break it everywhere. You don't want to buy a $2 item with $100. So it takes a little more effort, but still easier than going and getting that money out of the bank account when we have to do that way. So we spend our money on hand. We need a little more to get a bigger item. We grab from the wallet, that starts to go down. Then we want to take a bigger item or use it to buy some tickets for the concert. We go to the $100 bills, we can spend them. The body's the same way. And when we eat a certain way and we build up that visceral fat and that organ fat in the liver, that's a whole bunch of $100 bills getting ready to do something, to buy that ticket to the concert, but we never do. It just, and then when the body has to hold that there long enough, it's a very, very expensive model to uphold. It's not meant to be there, and we keep it there. It's like using when you have a flat tire, you put on your spare, and then you have to go get your tire fixed and everything. It's like driving a car around with the spares on all the time and never changing them out. You can do it, but eventually everything's going to fall apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
So what do we do about it? How do we spend the $100 bills on our liver to make it utilize it appropriately.
That fat is dangerous. It can be fatal, but it's very easy to get rid of because it was put there for a reason. It's part of the process. The body's not stupid with this. So what in our body in general, we can't target fat. Like I want to lose arm fat or I want to lose my butt fat. Guess what? The body chooses and it goes systemically. We can't do that. No matter how many of these I do, it doesn't necessarily change my arm fat, right? The liver fat's different. If you do something that is very intense and very hard stress on the body, it will go to that $100 bill, that liver fat and that visceral fat first before it touches the body fat, which makes a lot of sense because it's dangerous if it stays there too long. So what kind of things can shock our body into using that? The easiest one we're talking about is fasting. Time not eating, it starts to liberate that pretty quickly. If you, on top of that, doing intense exercise, short duration, something that's very hard, breathe, sweat, that'll access that fat before it accesses your body fat. Because here's the other deal. If you have that fat in your liver and viscera, that's the pathway that processes your body fat. So if it's blocked up in its own gook, it won't take the fat off my butter love handles that I want until that's gone. So it helps in both ways, right? So you do the intense exercise, things like sauna work, that can be a stress that would access that as well. Things like sleep is a great way to kind of give yourself an advantage. It doesn't quite access it, but if you're doing those during the day, it will enhance it. That's a good one. Cold acclimation as well, opposite of heat, does a similar thing. And then any kind of learning, believe it or not, will actually stimulate that to get going. So if you learn a language or you're learning a new program on your computer or even an emotionally intelligent conversation, believe it or not, that lights up these parts as well because it's a challenge stress, just like exercise. So yeah, those type of quick action, high intensity changes will start to access that pretty quick. And once it comes out, and it comes out pretty quick, then it can really kick in gear and burn some body fat if you keep in that model, right? That's the whole concept that we build up to.
So how long does it take to get rid of, let's say, liver fat? Is it different for different people depending on how much they have accumulated?
Yes, it is, because once it's there, if we keep it there too long, the support for it starts to break down. Okay, that's when we start to see insulin resistance and blood sugar changes and weight gain because it gets very hard to lose weight because the couriers like the UPS drivers who bring the fat to get burned go on strike. There's one of the process, and that's 80% of those carriers are not working. So it's very hard to get that out. We have to build up the capacity in our muscles in the glycogen, the ability to store muscle, because that goes flat as well. It's part of the problem. Some of the cells that make insulin have to change back, and then of course that fat's got to come out. So if it's been there for a while and you have like this residual thing, it might take a while to come out. So there's no one number. If it just happened over the last season and you used to be active, it can come out in a couple weeks. It can be very quick. I had a woman who had a liver that on an MRI was 2.5 times the size of normal and starting to scar. That's bad. Livers can grow dramatically and still be very healthy, right? There are conditions like that, but when they start to scar, that's like a big deal. And she was on our last choice. I wasn't the first choice. She didn't want to fast first. But the bottom line is it took 5.5 months before that liver fat finally started to go. Things had to heal. Things had to go. She held the line. Most people would quit after a week, never mind a month, never mind 5 months. But once that tipping point happened and that liver was clear, she started losing 25 pounds a month, just coming off because it was blocked up because this process had a rock in the river. And that's eventually that came out and it started to flow.
So that's really good news for people who have what we call metabolic syndrome, which is so many of my patients have. And the first clue is they really have difficulty losing weight, even when they're restricting their calories, they're exercising, and then you see their blood sugar starting to creep up. And chances are we think they probably have a fatty liver without even checking.
It
So
almost has to
how,
be assumed today, right?
right, exactly. And once you get blood work and your liver enzymes are elevated, then you
That's
know,
way advanced at that point.
right, you know that you're in trouble. The
But I
other,
get it. I've had metabolic syndrome 3 times. Every time I
wow.
moved, moving countries was apparently very stressful on me. And then
Mm.
within getting settling, every time I had a big move, my system went off. And right now, this is day 20 of a 30-day fast. So I don't just talk about this. This is what I do on
You
as part
walk
of my
the
life.
walk. Yes,
Yeah. And 30
that's
days,
good. That's
that was an
important.
ambitious walk. I was nervous, but it's going very well.
Great. Yeah. No, I saw your before and after photo.
Oh, a couple days ago. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
that's just 2 weeks. I was like surprised.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, you're inspiring me. So, if somebody, let's say, wanted to confront the idea of fasting, how would they get started? What would you recommend they do leading up to it?
Sure.
How do they decide how long of a fast to do?
Yeah. The way I talk about it, there's 4 phases of a complete fasting cycle. Like anything, we want to do it completely, right? Especially if it's going to be hard. So the first phase is the prep and planning. That's leading up to the fast, and that's dietary lifestyle, and I'll go into that. The second one is your support options just before, during, and after. And that can be social support, but it could also be some things that we call crutches to get you through a fast without breaking it. We call it bending the fast versus breaking the fast, right? And then the third one is the actual fast. It's actually the smallest point of the whole process, the actual fast. And then the fourth one is the reinforcement stage. That's how you break your fast and how you continue living until your next fast. Because we do rotational calendars over 6 months minimum is usually what I do. But and I'll go into why. So the prep and planning, that could be anywhere from, depending on the person, a day to 4 weeks. It just depends on how much you have to change, because the more you can clean up before you get into that fast, the more comfortable it'll be. I have had no problem with this fast. I feel like I had a meal maybe a couple hours ago. I'm not full, but I'm not hungry. I'm satiated, and it's been like that the whole time. I don't get the cold, the headaches, the shakes, the energy, sleep problems. And this is the first time I can say I haven't had any of it. And I think it's because I did a lot of preparing for this. And what you're doing is you want to first try to get into a state where you're burning more fat than sugar. Most people by default are sugar burners and not fat burners. So the first thing you do is you cut out the sugar as best you can. You cut out the things that make insulin go crazy, like processed foods, anything made from a powder, even protein powder. That'll start to calm the system before you go. If you want to fast from coffee, make sure you quit that at least a week before you start. You don't want to be kicking coffee and food at the same time. I wouldn't want that. That's a strong no, thank you. Okay. So get that out ahead of time. And then if you want to take it to another level, if you can eliminate plant food from your diet for a week before going into at least a longer fast, it's much more comfortable. A lot of what they call fasting symptoms or fasting reactions are detox reactions from the chemicals in plants, like mainly oxalates. So, or you can look up high oxalate foods, just avoid them. But oxalates is when you start to purge those really quickly when you're not eating. That's what makes people cold, and they get extremity cold. They feel that core cold, not just like, I need a jacket kind of cold, or the sleep disturbances, the brain fog, I can't concentrate, all of it looks like a detox reaction coming from those oxalates that can finally get out, that have been sitting there for maybe our whole life. So you eliminate those, then you're rolling into your fasting time. This is for a fast 3 days or more. That's what I would consider extended fast. If you're doing one day, you can do a couple of days of cleaning it up and get through it. But you don't have to do a whole lot. Just like breaking the fast after one full day, not too much to consider. But 3 days now, we got a different biome in our gut and everything. We want to think about that going through. So the prep and planning, start drinking lots of water in your prep and planning. Eat a lot of salt. Whole natural sea salt, just go crazy. You want to build those stores up because they shift while we're not eating and things like that. But if you start doing that, just like that, and maybe the week before a longer fast, start to cut back on your eating frequency, not necessarily the amount, but the frequency. So I tell people start with 3 meals a day, no snacking. You don't cut anything out. Just all your food for the day is in 3 separate times. Nothing magical about it. Then as you get closer, maybe remove one of the breakfasts or dinners, just so you start to mix it up, and then you go into the longer fast that way. And that way some of the uneasiness might be already out of your system. So those are things I would do in the prep and planning. The support is tough. Sometimes I tell people, you might not want to tell anybody you're fasting till you're well into it, because you get a lot of weird questions and looks, and people think you're dying or you're going to kill someone. They tell me, oh, you hear all sorts of stuff, right? Like they say, you can't do that. Well, here I am in day 20. I should be dead, or maybe you don't die from fasting, right? So if you gotta wage how much confrontation you want. Look, I have a shirt on, actually. I don't know if you can read it. It says, sorry for what I said while fasting, just to shut those people up, because man, it can be a lot. So, or, and the other flip side is you want to tell your people that you're closest to, your family, you want their support. You don't want to have to make separate dinners. You want everyone to be on the same page. They don't have to do what you're doing, but if they know what you're doing, then they'll support you and they'll be cheering you on, and you won't feel as tempted. You can still sit with them and drink your water or have your broth, and not feel like you're just standing in the corner watching them eat and them watching you not eat, right? Things like that. And there's also things you use in support, like coffee, tea, broth, flavored bubbly water sometimes. And then things like you might have some citrus, you might have some cheese. These are all things that you learn how to use as a crutch. If you get to that point where like, oh, it's been a day and a half, I can't do it, I'm about to have a burger, I'd rather you grab a cup of coffee. It's going to have a minimal effect on your fast. Or if that's not your gig, maybe it's some bone broth. Or, and if that doesn't really go, maybe you grab 5 olives, right? And you munch on those. That usually those things are enough to get past that immediacy of that moment, and you can keep going. That's called bending the fast. And you use crutches. So I always want to have them there, but I don't plan to use them. They're as needed, not required, right? It just helps with the calming of the system too. Once you know they're there, you feel like, okay, I got it. I got backup just in case. And then the fast itself, choose your duration, pick your days. Like this one's a 30-day one. I've done one 30-day in the past, and I've done a 14, a couple 12s, 7s, and stuff like that for a long time. And so, but 30 days, I'm not saying jump into that. This is not something you want to put on social media.
Right,
Say,
you
who
could
wants to
start
join me?
with three days, right? Just to try it out for the first time.
Start with one day.
Right, one day.
Right? And if one day goes good, start with one day twice in a week, Tuesday and Thursday, or whatever it is, and start, because that's what you want to do. Because the benefits of fasting, and now we just did the fast, we had the support, we're going into the reinforcement. When you break that fast, and those 3 to 5 days after is when you're giving the raw materials for your body to repopulate what it broke down from recycling when you weren't eating, with brand new stem cells. So you're going to produce trillions of stem cells, brand new, like baby cells, ready to go in. And based on when you were fasting, your body took inventory of what it needs and what it cleaned out. And so boom, you start eating quality food, and they come in, and then the body puts them and uses them where they need to. Could be brain cells, could be heart, a lot of skin, because people's complexion changes dramatically, things like that. But then also, once they're in there, they got their new job. You got to make it they got to welcome them, make them feel good. Otherwise, if they think it's a hostile environment, they bail. You don't get to keep them. And that's a lot of work to not keep those stem cells that people pay a lot of money to try to inject in themselves.
I was going to say that it saves you money. You don't have to do anti-aging.
I mean, a lot, those are expensive. I have some colleagues that do that, and they're a lot. They're a lot. So you want to keep them. So the reinforcement stage, you come off the fast, maybe with a half-size dinner or half-size meal, maybe, or a third. The next one might be a half. And then you go into your 3 meals a day. You still want to stay very insulin friendly, because insulin will shut down the processes that we just got ramped up. You're also very hormonally sensitive, and that means taste buds come back. Gut is brand new. So if you go and grab a Slurpee, it might blow your head off. You just won't believe how sweet it is. And that will just shock the whole system. You don't want to do that. Even like astringent oils, like coconut oil or essential oils, give yourself 3-day break from that, because they're so strong, they actually work. They can strip out some things. You just work to rebalance in there. And same thing with fiber. Fiber is an irritant. I'm not a fan. I'm not a big fan on plants, but it stretches, it does things, it goes through the colon fast. It gets into the large intestine, where it can have bacterial issues in there. So people can get a lot of distension. They can get distress from fiber if they do it right before a fast or right after. If you normally want to go back to that, give yourself, again, 2 or 3 days, to go in so you don't get nailed with that really quickly. But other than that, you're pretty well set. You don't want to go get pizza and beer. I see that all the time, and people celebrate it, and I'm like, whoa, you just lost all that benefit.
Yeah, that would be counterproductive. That's a perfect time for me to talk about the best place to get nutrient-dense food when you're ready to break your fast. If you're someone who understands the role that food plays in your health, there's actually a website that you can get matched to a small-scale family farm that grows and sells high-quality, clean, nutrient-dense food in your area, anywhere in the US. So just click on the link in the description of this video. The link is going to be www.farmmatch.com/Dr. Cori. Put your zip code in and you'll be matched with a farm near you. Some farms have pickup locations, some will deliver to your door. If you happen to be in what we call a food desert and there is no farm nearby, you'll still get matched with a farm that can ship the food to you. I get almost all of my food from one of these farms, and it's been a game changer for me and my family. So the best way to change the world is voting with your food dollars. If you are outside the US, I do have another link for you to get matched to something similar. It will be in the description of this video. So yeah, and I mostly am eating protein from these farms. So very clean, grass-fed, beautiful protein.
What a great option. That's great.
Yeah. So okay, so we're in the breaking fast phase, right? And then that's the fourth phase, what you call
that's the reinforcement. It starts with the break, then you want to keep very clean eating, low insulin, so that those raw materials, those mainly amino acids and fatty acids, can get right in and repopulate and help those new cells stick and stay and get tenure and stay forever.
I like it. I think I'm going to try it. I will try it. I don't know exactly when. I got to prepare for this, but
well, I have a free 5-day crash course on prep and planning for fasting, 5 days of lessons. You can do them in one day, plan it out, but it goes through all these different things a little more detailed, so you can actually go in knowing you're prepared and so on. Then I have other things like challenges and programs, but if you just want to focus on getting ready, and that's free, you can definitely go check that out. And I have a fasting user's guide too that's free as well. I have a lot of different resources that you can use. It's all online, and be happy to offer it.
Where can we find you?
You can find me. My website is insulinfriendlyliving.com. And you can find me on Facebook just under my name. And then my group is Insulin Friendly Fasting Secrets.
Okay, great. And I will put links to these things in the description of the video so we can find you. So I think that there's a lot of people who might be interested in trying this, but feel like they're going to need some support or guidance.
Let me take a second. And when you're doing it new, there are some considerations you should know. People ask, is it safe? I know it used to be 15 years ago, I could say everyone can do it, just do it, no problem. I've learned it's not necessarily that easy. There's nothing dangerous about fasting, but what happens is if you're on different medications or had different surgeries that impact gut or any kind of hormonal organs like thyroid or so forth, you start to fast, your body's efficiency goes up. When you start to fast, your energy, your metabolism actually goes up. It doesn't go down. It gets you ready for that action. And so when that efficiency through all the recycling, because you're not eating, is going on, medications can suddenly feel a lot stronger, right? You can become over medicated. So I'm not a fan of generally recommending go talk to your doctor about anything unless they know what they've done this. But in this case, you want to let them know you're doing this, and you don't want to find, especially for blood sugar and blood pressure, you don't want to be over medicated because your body's working better and now the drugs are too strong. So you have to watch that. It's an important one.
Well, great point. And with both blood sugar and blood pressure, the good news is you can actually monitor it, so you can see if your sugar is going too low or your pressure is going too low. And I'm not allowed to tell anybody to reduce their medication on their own, but if somebody says to me, I'm reducing my medication, then we can give them some guidance about how to do it safely if their medical doctor won't assist them with it.
Absolutely. That's the ultimate. It's their medication, right? It's not a court order. It's a recommendation, and they got to be smart about that. But that's one of the things that does happen in fasting is blood pressure naturally comes down, blood sugar goes down, and if you test ketones, you'd see that ketones go up. People think they get low energy. Your energy needs or requirements stay exactly the same. What changes is what we build our energy from. That's it. Same amount of output, but instead of pouring in glucose to make our energy, we pour in fat or ketones. And so therefore blood sugar goes down as those ketones go up. It takes a little bit, but if you do check your numbers, make sure you keep that in mind, because you might see a low number and think it's bad when actually it's actually perfectly normal for you. So if that's really a concern, there's a lot of places you can look into how to interpret those and things like that. Just get a little more understanding so you don't react to a number. If you feel one thing is one thing, but don't just change things because of a number you're chasing on a monitor, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, right. But if you start feeling lightheaded, then you know something is dropping. Dr. Don, do you stop taking nutritional supplements while you're fasting?
Good question. I recommend that. I recommend if someone's going into, like my 6-month program goes through a lot of fasting. Before they enter, I like them to be off all their nutritional supplements. They don't have to get rid of them. I just want to know what their baseline is, right? I want to know the baselines. And then during a fast, one of the most common things people take are electrolytes, or basically whole sea salts, maybe a magnesium powder, maybe a potassium. Really about it. Okay, because when those oxalates come rushing out of our system, oxalates are almost the same as minerals. Minerals are kind of like rocks. Oxalates are kind of like crystals, and they play together. And so when they start flooding out, they take some of our electrolytes out with our minerals. And so by having that salt, it helps us with that. You're not going to go deficient or anything like that, but you can feel that change, and it helps people get through. Plus, it's got some taste to it, better than drinking straight water all the time, things like that. And so they do, yeah. So as far as the fast, that's probably about the only thing I say. If there's a supplement that you just won't give up, it's not gonna make or break you. But some things will. Branched chain amino acids, and protein powders of any kind at any source. So it doesn't matter if it's pea protein, hemp protein, coconut protein, it doesn't matter. And then essential amino acids in a powder. Those three can stop your fasting metabolism very quickly. That's what actually triggers it to stop, those free amino acids. And when you take it in a powder form, it just hits your system like a nuclear bomb, and it'll shut it right down, right? It'll come back, but I don't see the point in doing it, right? You want your body to recycle. The recycling goes up thousands of percent. That's why you don't need it as much. That's why the numbers on the scale don't always exactly reflect the caloric calculation, which drives me crazy, right? So you'll learn to figure that out. If you want to weigh yourself every day for your prep time, every day in the morning, same time, same place. That way, when you start to fast, if things go weird, you kind of got an idea that how your body responds anyway. Because sometimes people gain weight when they fast initially, just a little bit. It's totally not fat, but if you know your rhythms, it helps you understand what's going
retention,
on.
fluid rebalancing. Yeah.
Well, that we talked about the minerals. Sodium's a big one, and aldosterone, which is the hormone that controls sodium and insulin, they have a tag team weird relationship. So when insulin drops, aldosterone kind of goes, yippee, I can come out, right? And so we see a change in water too. That's why people are more thirsty when they fast. They drink more water, go to the bathroom more, things like that. And when they stop, they just have to back it down. Don't want to drink excessive water when you stop a fast, because that can also cause digestive distress.
Wow, I really learned so much. I'll probably be hitting you up for some supervision on fasting myself. So,
sure, that's what we do. A lot of educational stuff. We want people to understand this. If people can understand the physiology and see why it's not only natural, healthy, but required. One other thing you mentioned before about the inflammation, if we look at the model for a injury, say a sprained ankle, we know in healthcare that when you sprain an ankle, the body lays down scar tissue to immobilize it, and it seems to lay down too much. They call it an overproduction. In spinal surgeries, that can be a big problem in years to come because it causes problems. And I always wondered, why would the body, being so smart, put down extra or random stuff? And I'm like, it can't be random. I believe now, watching animal studies and behavior, that when they break a leg or sprain an ankle or have an injury, they hunker down, and what do? They fast. I think what happens in the body is the body lays down that extra cushion of support, knowing, or at least it did, that we would then fast, and that's when it trims it out, and you don't get those secondary effects. So the body's very smart like that, and it goes after the most important stuff first. So keep that in mind.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Dr. Don. I really enjoyed this interview.
I did too. I love your channel.
Thank you. All right. Well, I hope this was really helpful. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. As of right now, I have a little over 9,600 subscribers, and I would really love to get to 10,000. It would make me so happy.
Let's push her over the top.
Thanks. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this information helpful, because it does help other people find the videos. And last and most importantly, don't forget to share this with anyone that you think would benefit from the information. So thanks again for watching. Stay well until we see you again next time.